So your next step is to visit eastwind.life and just say, tell me more, to head out these doors and take a left and talk to Linda and Becky about the experience. Or if you want to talk to me, I was a host, I can tell you all about it. But just super excited about this chance to open our homes one more time this summer for 10 more students from Basque Country. So really wanted to let you know about that. And now we're going to jump into week 2 of our Sermon on the Mount discussion. If you're here for week 1, you're like, it's not really a Sermon on the Mount discussion. Week 1, we didn't even talk about it. All right, week 1, we talked about the law and the prophets, and we went all the way back to the 10 Commandments. And what the connection we were trying to make was Jesus says early on in this teaching, he goes, I haven't come to abolish everything, that the law and the prophets that's come before. I've come to fulfill it. So we said, well, let's spend a day and let's talk about what that law and what those prophets were talking about. And we boiled it. If you missed it, I'm going to give you the summary. And if you're here last week, you're going to go, you mean I had to sit through all of that and you could have just told me the summary and we could have got out and enjoyed our day? All right, but the summary is this. Jesus was pinned down by a teacher of the law. And he said, Jesus, what is the most important commandment? What's the most important aspect of the law and the prophets? And Jesus said, the first is this, love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, your strength. And the second is just like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. And what we did is we went back to show how the 10 Commandments are where that teaching comes from. Jesus wasn't eradicating the 10 Commandments. He was highlighting the substance of the 10 Commandments. So that was last week to build the foundation for what it is Jesus is doing in the Sermon on the Mount. Now today, we're still not going to get into the Sermon on the Mount. We're going to spend our whole day talking about one word that's the foundation for how we might understand everything Jesus says in Matthew 5, Matthew 6, and Matthew 7. Because the challenge is things get lost in translation, and maybe you've experienced that directly in your life. And the more distinct the structure and the alphabet of the languages between the translation, the more complication can come from it. So English is very linear in its structure, but there are other languages, like the Hebrew's not linear, and I was thinking about kind of humorously things that get lost in translation, and thinking about languages and how they might shift when you just punch it into Google Translate. And you say, tell me what this means in English. And here's a few examples that came out. The directness is there, but they totally miss the heart. So here your advice is slip and fall down carefully. Now, clearly, it's a caution about slipping and falling, but the encouragement in the translation is going to be slip and fall down carefully because the complexity of the languages, the alphabets, and the structure just don't quite line up that simply. Or here, if you're visiting this, beware of the missing foot. And you do hope they find this foot at some point in some time so that they can update the information. Or you're hungry and you go, I need some meat, muscle, stupid bean sprouts. Now, meat, muscle, stupid bean sprouts is not the actual meal. It's a problem of oversimplified translation. Continuing on, beware of safety. Wherever you are here, just beware of safety. And so you don't go there. Instead, you go here where execution is in progress. This one cracked me up. Again, things get lost in translation. The humor is not one language versus another. The humor is oversimplifying that you think you know what something means, primarily by putting it in an oversimplistic translation process. So some encouragement. Save water, you are the best. Flush timely, you are the best. Protect public property, you are the best. Urinating into the pool, you are the best. I'm not sure any of you see that at a public pool. And then we'll end with this. Do not disturb, the tiny grass is dreaming. We're going to look at one word today. One word that if we misunderstand it, if we go into the Sermon on the Mount without having like a handle on what Jesus is getting at, we might end up with almost maybe a comical understanding, or maybe we go to the other side. It's not a comical understanding, it's a destructive understanding. And the word is going to arrive very early in the teaching of Jesus. It begins here in Matthew 5, chapter 1 and 2. Now, when Jesus saw the crowds, and that's the backdrop, Jesus is in his public ministry, and he's healing the sick, and he's proclaiming something called the kingdom of God, this new community. And as he's doing this, the crowds are gathering around. They want to hear, who is this man? And so Jesus, he sees the crowds, and look what he does. He went up on a mountainside. He sat down, and his disciples came to him. So it tells us a little bit about the audience. Now, again, this is a series on the Sermon on the Mount, and next week we'll actually get into it. But today we're getting into one word that's the foundation, because Jesus began to teach them. Now, you hear that, and your ears should perk up. What did Jesus say? What was he teaching them? And he began with this word, blessed. Everything that happens after this hinges on this word. It's the first word for a reason, and it lays out something called the Beatitudes, or the list of the beautiful life. It's what he's going to introduce as this new community. The word is kingdom, but it's not a very comfortable word for us, so we maybe a less dramatic but somewhat effective word would be community. Jesus is establishing a new community of which he sets the rules, and this community is a place where people like you and I can come and we can live and be blessed. And so my introductory question for you around this word is going to center around the problem of how confusing blessed can be. It's certainly a religious word, but it also has like non-religious or secular currency. I think, and generally it means like things are going good for you. Life is good. Maybe God has blessed you, or maybe the universe is shining down upon you. You might have a sign in your house. You probably picked it up at Hobby Lobby or Marshall's. It says, blessed is the home that's filled with love. Or maybe when fall rolls around, you pull out your fall decoration and you're thankful and blessed. You've got a little cross-stitched pillow. Or maybe on your social media, you had a really good week and some great experiences and you're like, hashtag blessed. Like it's out there. It's a word that we use a lot, and it generally means this, right? This is what we mean when we say blessed. I'm doing good. Something good has happened to me. All right? Life's good. God has smiled on me, or the universe has smiled on me, and all is going well. So let me ask you, we do a few questions on a morning here. Would you say you are blessed? Now, during the week, I'm thinking about this and thinking about the time we'll spend together, and this question popped up, and I thought, it hit me too late, that for some of you sitting out here this morning, this is a heartbreaking question. It's not a casual, like, turn to your neighbor and answer. There's something about this that you're just like, I can't even talk about if I'm blessed, because I feel the opposite of that. I'm going to invite you to hang in there, though. Hang in there and explore. Would you say you're blessed? And maybe you might say no. Or maybe you'd go, yes. But just kind of turn to someone you're with, or if you're sitting alone, just say hello to somebody and answer this question. How would you answer? Would you say you're blessed? What's going on that the universe is smiling on you, or that God is good to you? And then we'll pick it back up in just 1 minute, okay? All right, take just a second, couple seconds. So this is going to be the challenge for us as we walk through the morning. If you didn't pick up on it already, we're spending the rest of our time together just talking about one word, blessed. One word that Jesus introduces at the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount, what the beautiful life is. And the reason we're going to spend this time is because blessed is kind of a vague concept, and I don't believe Jesus was doing something vague. He was doing something intentional about what it means to be human, about who God is, and about who we are. Something more than a warm sense of God doing something somewhere, somehow, sometime, and something a little bit different than how we might pray when we say, God bless, and then we say, and God, you fill in the blank. Would you just do something good for that person's life? Bless them. That might be a way that we've prayed before. But the Greek word, and here's just a note of what we'll explore today. Jesus didn't speak Greek as far as we know. He is from Galilee, a region that was known for lacking education. Jesus, any recorded words in the original language of Jesus are in Aramaic. Aramaic was a derivative of Hebrew because he was Jewish, but it was like street Hebrew that was very common in an area that didn't have as much formal schooling. So if you've ever read Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, and you see at times it'll include like a language you don't know, and then in parentheses it'll be this meant. That's when the Gospels record the direct words Jesus spoke in Aramaic. The rest of it comes to us translated in Greek. And so there's already a translation that unfolds by the time we get the Gospels, and then they're translated into English. So we deal with all of these challenges. But the Greek word that the Bible uses in the Sermon on the Mount, it's the word blessed. It's this word right here, makarios, to be happy. Now, just geek out with me for a minute. You might have heard this term before, but in Jesus' day, which was called the Second Temple era, eudaimonia was hot. Eudaimonia was Aristotle's idea that there was a good life you could live. And this is the foundation of the life we've inherited. Like, is this not the human pursuit? I want to have a good life. I want to know that my life measures up. I want the things that make me happy. I want to know that what makes me happy is the right thing to make me happy. And Aristotle and others put great thought to this, and it began to do what we'd say is shape the West. Now, this word, though, this is makarios, isn't eudaimonia, but it carries the same sense, and its direct translation is to be happy. But that's kind of a problem, I think, when we read it, because you and I need a pretty robust view of happy if we're going to imagine that Jesus sat in the Sermon on the Mount, gathered the disciples, and said, hey, let's talk about how to be happy. Because happy feels emotional, doesn't it? Certainly feels contextual. Happiness feels like something that you might experience if you're having a good day. And so everywhere else makarios occurs in the New Testament, it's translated happy, except on the Sermon on the Mount. And you can see the translators understood that something could be lost. And it doesn't just simply mean happy. It could mean a variety of other things, but it doesn't mean this, that it's a nice, beautiful day, and I'm on the beach, one of my favorite places. I've got a scoop of chocolate Moose Track ice cream in one hand and my favorite book in the other, and I'm happy. And then a dark rain cloud comes. And cold rain falls on my book, and my chocolate Moose Tracks fall in the sand, and now I'm not happy. That's the problem with happiness. It seems very specific to the moment that we're in. So makarios, although its simplest meaning is happy, Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount, happy are makarios. It's got a deeper, more substantial. This is how I was thinking about it. Dirt in your fingernails. Blessed, makarios, happy. It's a dirt in your fingernails kind of word. It is like I'm in the stuff of life. I've been scratching and working and I'm human. Can there be happiness for me as well? And this is the idea I'd lay out. So makarios, or blessed, speaks of a deep sense of contentment and well-being that is real, irrespective of the circumstances. And so when we get to the Sermon on the Mount and we talk about the Beatitudes, we'll really dig into this idea. But today, I just want to take the idea that we might say how happy are. And if you've been around Eastern for the last year, something I've talked about at times as it relates to this word is the image of a bridge with traffic crossing over it, and that the happy life is the life that has so much integrity and structure, it can carry whatever load comes across it. Now, if we pull back a second, we understand that. When life is good, we tend to be good. And then when life is not good, we tend to struggle. And that has everything to do with the integrity or the structure or the happiness of our lives. And so, gear up, I guess. The rest of the morning is what is happy? What is happy? What is happy? What is happy? So we can understand what blessed is, so that when we open up the Sermon on the Mount and Jesus said, blessed are, we all kind of have a sense of what he is getting at. And so this makarios word can mean fortunate, can have a lot, happy, fortunate, blessed, or the good life, which is one of my favorite renderings of it. How good is the life of? So let me ask you a question. This is question number 2. If you have the good life, what does that look like? This is a chance to just list it. What are the elements that someone who has the good life has? How would you answer that? And we'll be back in 1 minute, and then we'll continue on. got your list. We're going to do something that we don't normally do. I just decided to do it the first service. They did great, so competition's on right now. We'll see how you all do with it. But I said, I'm very curious. What is the good? If you have the good life, what is it? What did you say? So it's probably like a single word you might be able to call out and go, this is what I think is the good life. So how about this section over here? If you have the good life, what do you have? Family. You're not in that section. But that was excellent. That was very good, though. That's how we do it. You can see it's so competitive already. Family, the good life. Something else? What is it? Friends. Yeah. How about this section? Contentment. I heard community, maybe. Yeah. How about over here? Peace. Couple pieces. You say freedom? Someone said freedom? That's freedom, peace, family, contentment. Over here, this. Someone finally saying what everybody's thinking, right? Pickleball. Someone say appreciation, right? Right. Let's think about this. We could go around this room and bit by bit we'd build a list that we don't show up as a blank slate to what the good life is. There's stuff that we work at, we work for. There are things that we have experienced that we know they lead to a better sense of living for us. And here's Jesus. He steps on the Sermon on the Mount, and the crowds have gathered in, and he goes up on a hill, and he brings his close followers to them, and he says, he began to teach them by saying, blessed, oh, how happy are, the good life belongs to. He's not speaking about a topic nobody cares about. He's speaking about the topic that drives all of human activity and interest and pursuit. Am I living the good life? So what we're going to do in the Old Testament, which there's two words for blessed. And they're very similar, but they're different. And their difference matters because Jesus doesn't use these two words. He uses one word. All right? So we're just going to go down a quick language piece so you can kind of look at this. Because remember, when something's lost in translation, right, then you can't get to the essence of what it is trying to tell you. And so the first word is barak, or Baruch would be how it's often conjugated or shared. And it simply means it's a formal pronouncement of blessing by someone in authority. This is what we most often think of when we think of blessed. May God bless you. May God formally pronounce something good for your life because he's God and he can do that. Or it could be a person in authority. May your government operates in a certain way. You'll receive the blessing from that, you might think or feel. It's this idea, put it in language that misses it a little bit, but if you're an athlete and you're on the bench and you finally get your shot and the coach goes, all right, come on up, you're going in. That's like a pronouncement of blessing on you. All right, you now get to go participate and experience what this is. Or if you get a promotion, if you get a raise, those are all baruchs. Those are all moments where someone in authority gives you a gift. You've been baruched. It's the most common word in the Old Testament for blessed. I mean, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you and give you peace. May the Lord baruch you. May he, from his place of authority, give you something. It's a beautiful word, to be baruched. The challenge is it's not the word Jesus uses. Baruch is never translated makarios. In the Old Testament, when it's translated from Hebrew into Greek, it's translated into a different word, not makarios, though. The word that's translated into makarios is our other word for blessing, asher, which could also be pronounced, once it's conjugated in what we'll look at today, asrei, but none of that's really that important. I just want you to see the difference between the two words. And this is very different. This is an observing happiness, privilege, or fortune in another person. So Baruch is the coach putting you in the game. Asrei is someone going, wow, do you see how good they are? You see how skilled they are and how conditioned they are and how much they... So see the difference between the two? One, authority pronounces over you. The other is an observation. Now, the reason that this becomes really important is because if in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus is announcing a Baruch, he's saying, look, God bless those who are. That's different than Jesus calling people together and saying, have you seen the poor in spirit? They're the ones who are blessed. Have you seen the meek? They're the ones living the good life. Have you seen those who hunger and thirst for righteousness? They have found the good life. He's observing. He's announcing an observation by choosing to use the word asrei. It's like someone walking by and going, whoa, that person is really living well. This isn't unlike how we live. Like we are all day long, we're looking at people primarily through our devices and going, man, they have the good life. But if we dig deeper, we realize that like a curated persona is not the good life. It's an external view of the good life. Some of you walk with people who have been through the dirt under your nails kind of living, and you've watched how they've had peace and resilience, how they've been able to rejoice in the most difficult places. And you go, Asrei, that person is living the good life. So that's what Jesus takes us into, and I'm going to show you some of the uses of this word in the Psalms. Now, if the Old Testament predominantly says Baruch, may God bless you, in the wisdom literature, Psalms and Proverbs is where you see Asrei, 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 Asrei. And the wisdom literature is focused on how to live the good life. So let's look at how it kicks off. Psalm 1. Someday we'll study the Psalms, and here's the beautiful thing about Psalm 1. It's the anchor psalm. It's not just the first chapter. Psalm 1 puts to the test, did you know there's a way you can live your life? And that way will sustain you. The rest of the Psalms are anchored to testing. Is Psalm 1 the way? So let's look at what it says. Blessed, Asher or Asrei, is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked or stand in the way that sinners take or sit in the company of mockers. Those are observations. Did you see? Can you see them over there? Look what they don't do. And then it turns and says, but whose delight is in the law of the Lord and who meditates on his law day and night. And then it gives us a picture of what Ashrei looks like. This is what their life looks like. They're like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and its leaf does not wither. And look at that last line. Whatever they do prospers. So Baruch would say, may you be like a tree by a stream of water that has fruit, that prospers. But Ashrei says, did you see how they're like a tree? You see the subtle difference between the two? But Jesus isn't accidentally choosing words. He's not casual. He wants to bring into this paramount message he's going to give about human experience, the idea that you can have an observably blessed life. And it might not be what you think it is. It might not be the things we regularly hustle after and the things we regularly build our lives around. And so there's this picture of abundance. Let's look at Psalm 2. The psalm closes after discussing the war of the nations and how kingdoms push against God. It says, but blessed Asrei are all who take refuge in him. You see that picture? So you would look over at someone who takes refuge in God, which is different than taking refuge in something else. And you say, blessed are they. Can you see the fruit of their life because of what they put their trust in? Let's go to Psalm 106. Blessed, Asrei are those who act justly, who always do what is right. All through the Psalms, 45 times, 44 or 45 times, this word is used to paint a picture of the good life. Jesus, again, is going to get into it. Now here's the challenge for us. You could sit there. I mean, that's probably, I sat there at one point, and you could say, what's that got to do with tomorrow? I mean, I've got things I care about, friends. I've got some relationships that are struggling. I've got some hopes and dreams. I've got some opportunities. And what I want to encourage you with, though, is none of us just go into tomorrow with a blank slate like, I'm going to figure this out. We are shaped by whatever we think the good life is. That will determine how we live and move and be in our day-to-day life. So Psalm 112 says, praise the Lord. Asrei are those who fear the Lord and who find great delight in his commands. And you see this picture of the good life observably being told. Let's just see Proverbs again. It occurs in there. Asrei are those who find wisdom, those who gain understanding. And this is just a visual of what this would look like. So you got us, a person in the middle. And blessing comes from two places. Blessing can come from the authority, Barak or Baruch, may God give you, or God blesses. And we do this, religious and irreligious. We reach certain moments in our life and we're saying, like, God, please give me that thing. Or please give them that thing. Like, if you just give me that, I'll have what I need. That's the opportunity I need. That's very different. That's one form of blessed than Asrei. Say Asrei with me on three. 1, 2, 3. Asrei. It's a nice sounding word. Baruch has got like Baruch. Like, maybe you get it. Asrei is like, did you see it? Did you see? Have you seen? Have you looked at their life? And that's going to be Jesus' teaching. as he takes us into the Sermon on the Mount. It's this description of a state of happiness and privilege that somebody is experiencing. And so I would set it up like this. I would say the Sermon on the Mount, what we find is Jesus reframes the concept of blessing as it would have been popular in his day, the eudaimonia concept. He reframes it with a vision of life that is undeniably good regardless of your circumstances. I was thinking about that in my own life. I'm like, that's the gold in living, regardless of my circumstances. As long as the sun's out and I'm on the beach and I've got my chocolate mousse tracks and I got a good book, I'm okay. But man, when the rain comes and the moose tracks fall on the ground and the book gets wet, my life is no longer good. Jesus ends the Sermon on the Mount with the story of the Asrei man. There's two builders. One builds their house on the sand, and the wind comes and the rain comes and it blows and rages against that house, and the house crashes to the ground. And he says, there's another builder. Did you see their life? They're the one who builds their life on the solid foundation. And the wind comes and the rain comes and it beats against that house, but that house cannot fall. And then in this moment of clarity, he says, the one who builds their house on the rock is the one who listens to what I say and does it. He doesn't like bounce around that thing. He's like, I have the way of life. Try your system, test it. It only works when it works. And Jesus says, try mine, test it. It works when life works the least. And you go, where does life work the least? Death. The foundation of Jesus' life and teaching is centered around that he has overcome death itself. The most non-Asrei thing you can have is to die. And Jesus says, I've even turned death into the good life. You now can be with Christ. So as we think about this and we walk, I want to give you a word for blessed that to me encompasses all of it. I think you get a framework like, have you seen the life of the one who's planted by the stream? And they always have fruit. And fruit's not a mystery. You know, the New Testament describes fruit: love and joy, peace and patience and kindness and goodness and faithfulness and gentleness and self-control. How Asrei is the one who has self-control. Have you seen the life of the one who's patient? Oh, did you look over there? That's the life of the one who's gentle. Did you see the life of the one who has joy? Like this Asrei life is a life of fruit, and I would say it's a life that flourishes. The blessed life is a flourishing life. I'm not trying to pin this down to like one word. Actually, we're expanding it, and we're going to end by kind of pulling it all of the way out, but it is an expanding life, and I think I say that, and I'm going to kind of give you an order of operations here, because the most human you can be is to be the most in harmony with the way you were designed to be. That's the challenge of Asrei. Did you see the life of the one who's deeply human? Why are they? Why do they live so well? Because they're the most in harmony with what it means to be human. That's the Asrei life. That's the wise life. That's the wisdom life. That's the Beatitudes life. That's the Sermon on the Mount life. And so I want to kind of put this in a framework. So Baruch or Barak, right? Baruch, the opposite of may God bless you is may God curse you. Hopefully that's never happened to you. Hopefully no one has ever said that to you. Cursing can come in a lot of different ways, right? But so if you Baruch somebody, bless you, you can also say curse you. And if you're like, I don't understand what that means. Imagine that like an old lady shows up at a young, handsome prince's castle on a rainy night. She knocks on the door and she just wants a place to stay for the night, but she's hideous. So he says no. And then she turns into a beautiful lady and says, here's this rose. And the rest of your life, you'll be a hideous beast, unless you can find true love before the last petal falls off the rose. And she curses him. And now he's this beast who lives alone in the woods until Belle shows up at his house. And then eventually they find true love and the curse is lifted. Cursing is like, it's this idea of saying, may you not flourish, or may you flourish. But you know, that's Baruch. There's an opposite of Ashrei as well. And you hear Jesus say it often, and it's woe to you. So two observations. How blessed are the ones on one side. And on the other side, he says, woe to you. And who does he usually say that about? Though it's the religious leaders. It's those who would say, look how Asrei I am. But Jesus says, yeah, but your roots are dead. you don't actually have any life. You just have the appearance of life. And you've really shaped that appearance up really well. When Jesus says, woe to the Pharisees, he's not cursing them. He's observing that their life is not blessed. Woe is the opposite of asrei. So as we look at this, I was trying to kind of give you a vision, because I would love for the weeks we go through the Sermon on the Mount, the part of you can get excited about this can shape your life as a parent, as a single person, as an educator, as an employee, as an employer, as a student, as an athlete, as a performer, as somebody who feels like life is hitting on all cylinders, and someone who feels like life has never hit on all cylinders. It can shape your life. Jesus is the one who says, build your life on my words. And when the wind comes, and when the rain beats against that house, it won't fall. It won't crash down. And so this is our little neighborhood right here, all right? I popped out this week and took this picture because the imagery in Psalm 1 is, blessed is the one who doesn't walk with the wicked or stand with the sinners or sit with the mockers, but they delight on the law of the Lord. Asrei is that one. Right now, when you drive to Surprise, are any of you like, whoo, man, blessed is Surprise Way? No, but you will every year. Traffic jams out there as everybody comes to take their pictures. And as the leaves fall and it's beautiful, you can see asrei is not a confusing concept. People show up because, like, did you hear about the street with all the red leaves? And they fall and you can take the most beautiful pictures and it's stunning. That's the image of asrei. There's a couple images in front of us. Asrei is Surprise Valley in the fall. I'm not a great photographer, but I ran out with my phone. It's probably overexposed. This was last fall. Golden hour. I heard that's a thing. I ran out there. I'm like, oh, Asrei is Surprise Way. Have you seen how those leaves shimmer in the sun? People come from all over Treasure Valley to take a picture here. Asrei. But there's a problem in Treasure Valley. If you were an arborist and you're walking down the street, you'd go, woe to that maple. You would. And if you've watched, have you noticed how they're disappearing? You may not have noticed yet. There's like a dozen of them are gone. Surprise Valley spends $20,000 a year caring for these trees and their disease. And it's not helping, though. Because some of them, although they'll put some leaves out and they'll have the appearance of being asrei, they're actually dying. Their inner life is dying. Their roots are balled up. They can't grow the way they need to grow, and the only option for them eventually, because eventually they'll stop to produce any sense of life. And then that's all you'll see, and no one will come to Surprise Valley in October to take pictures. They'll just go, man, what a sad neighborhood. What a sad place that their trees don't even have leaves that turn color in the fall. These are these gorgeous maples. That's the imagery. So every time you pull in a church and we're studying the Sermon on the Mount, you'll see there's no leaves for now, but spring's coming. And they'll start to come out and you can be like, asrei, how blessed is the one who has good roots that go out, that can receive the nourishment it needs, that can grow up the way that it's supposed to grow. Blessed is the one. And so I want to give you a closing question, something to think about. If Jesus walked by your inner life, and he made observations about what is going on, would he say, asrei, have you seen their inner life? Have you seen the gift of the Spirit that's there, the love and the joy and the peace that produce life? Or would he say, woe? Woe's not a curse. Woe's an observation. Would he say, have you seen the inner life? Now let me bring that home, like in a way. If I ever insult you, it's just because I insulted myself first, okay? Because I'm so deeply human in this journey. So I was thinking through this, and I said, Jesus walked by my inner life, and he was making observations about what's going on in my body, and what's going on in my mind, and what's going on in my heart, and what's going on in my spirit. And if he looked at my relationships and my possessions and my community, would he say, look at Carlos's life. It is a life that is asrei. Would he? Could he? That's not a mystery. You know. You know. And sometimes other people know, and that's when it becomes really problematic. Would he say asrei, or would he say woe to Carlos's life? Say sometimes he looks good. But if you really get down, he's dying. He's dying because he's built his life on the wrong thing, and he's holding it together, but he's missing the asrei that comes. And that's what's at stake in the Sermon on the Mount. It's an invitation from Jesus to us, to people, all time, all place. It's an invitation to say, not only can you be born again into a new community, but you can be replanted as a new tree. You can be planted by a spring of water. You'll yield fruit in all seasons, and whatever you do prospers because you're asrei. You have peace regardless of your circumstances. Now, here's where asrei and baruch come together, and you say, boy, that's someone who has been baruched by God. But the asrei, Jesus, when he says, blessed are, that's the description. And so I'm going to read through, because in 2 weeks we're going to go through the Beatitudes. I'm just going to read through, if it wasn't cumbersome, the best way it could be read in our New Testaments. But it's too cumbersome. That's why I'm going to read it. I'm not going to put it on the screen. There's a handful of blessings Jesus announces. It says, then he began to teach them. And he said, blessed or blessed. Oh, how fortunate are. Did you see how they flourish? The good life belongs to. And then he says the opposite of what everyone is on their edge of their seat waiting to hear. The good life belongs to the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of God. Blessed, oh, how fortunate are. Did you see how they flourish? The good life belongs to the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed, oh, how fortunate are. Did you see how they flourish? The good life belongs to those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. And Jesus is laying the foundation for everything that will come after. Blessed, oh, how fortunate are. Did you see how they flourish? The good life belongs to the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed, oh, how fortunate are. Did you see how they flourish? The good life belongs to those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And those who listened to these words in the years that follow would experience this firsthand as their very lives are ripped out from under them, as their very livelihood is taken away, as their very living is put to death. And yet they would be known as people who are so content and so full of peace in all circumstances. Blessed, oh, how fortunate are you. Do you see how they flourish? The good life belongs to you when people insult you and persecute you and falsely say all kinds of evil against you. And here's the thing, because of me, Jesus says. It's not very hard to have people say things about you if you're just being a jerk. But because of me, Jesus says. And then he says, rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. The ashrei life is a life that is greatly rewarded in heaven. And so with this question up here, something to process through is, here's kind of the invitation. Take inventory of your inner life. And if you find a litany, like I do sometimes, a litany of broken relationships, and you start to realize, oh, my inner life is fractured. It's not ashrei, it's woe. I'm not filled with peace and joy. I don't experience love. I have this anger problem. Can't seem to shake it. There's this lust addiction that for many things that just consumes my heart, and I feel so much shame over it. I have a relentless need to control my life and the lives of others. I'm starting to find this litany of broken relationships. I keep doing things to please people. I'm so constantly worried about tomorrow. And as you are assessing the maples down your surprise way of your heart, right? Then listen to Jesus when he says, asrei are. And his answer is not what we think. He doesn't say the strong. He doesn't say those who are certain. He doesn't say the rich. He doesn't say the educated. He doesn't say those with successful kids. He doesn't say those who are able to get in the housing market on time. He skips over all of that. And he says, have you seen the life of those who? And it's the inversion of everything you expect. And we're going to explore that in 2 weeks. But for now, before we sing our closing song, I'd love for you to reflect on this. Take that inventory. What do you find? What did Jesus see when he walked by and looked in your inner life?